I'm here to tell you, when you hand us something and say, this is how it has to be done, it's going to get done that way. So if you are nervous about whether Blue 7 can handle the processes you have in place, yes, we can. That's part of the value that we bring because we know that's what you're promising your clients. And that's the client at the end of the day. Hey everybody, it's Alan and Victoria from Blue 7 Content. And Victoria, their in-house writer can do it better.
Can they though?
That's what we're going to talk about today. And folks, we hear this a lot. And whether you have an in-house writing team or whether you're thinking about bringing on an in-house writing team, that's great. But we want to walk through our process and what we do to bring value for our clients, but also just to kind of give you an idea of what it takes to do this at the level that we do it at. And it is a process. So Victoria, you got any opening before we jump in?
Yeah. This kind of like educational discussion on our processes and how we do things is to, one, kind of educate who we are and what we do, to offer solutions, because oftentimes when people find us, they're usually frustrated, stressed out. Their company has grown increasingly amount, right? Has like exponentially grown. The team, which is usually just one person that they have to do their writing, just can't handle the volume that they are dealing with now. So that's
Right.
typically when we're called upon. So we're just kind of trying to, one, educate on what we do, and two, offer solutions, and three, show how we can help kind of ease any tension that you may be having on your current team or that you may be feeling as the company expands and other roles are being incorporated, and how we can best support those roles.
Absolutely. I'm going to jump right in. So an in-house writing team, if you have one, or if you're thinking about getting one, it gives you a piece of content, but content is just that. There has to be something behind the process. Anyone can write down a page and hand it to you, but we're going to show you kind of what we do. And the first thing we do, and Victoria handles a lot of this. Victoria, you want to talk about the guides that we create to work with these internal writing teams?
Yes. So we usually speak directly to either the content director or the chief of marketing, or someone who has just been directed as the person who is going to manage, organize, edit, uh,
Yeah, the all-in-one.
assign, all under one little director, title. And so what happens is people come to us and they say, we need this content done. We have a law firm. They need X, Y, and Z practice area pages. Can you write them? And when we come to the table, we say, okay, what are some unique points about that firm? Or what is a particular brand? Or what tone are they looking for? And one of two things happens. One, they give us mass amount of information. Maybe it was gathered when they were doing the intake. So there's videos, there's recorded calls, there's just endless notes that clearly came from the client. And this poor director is so overwhelmed with all the responsibilities that they have yet to organize it. So we can do a collaboration where we can take that information, distill it down to a guide. That way we can then take it to our writers so that they know how to write particularly for that firm. The other route is maybe you're neat and tidy, but you guys have exploded. So you had a certain amount of writers that are on your team, but they can't handle the volume. Guides are already in place. However, there's always a interpretation of the guides that differentiate as many eyes that are on it, right? So we help to simplify that process. So we
Right.
either help to simplify that guide that you already have, or we help you create the guide that you don't have. And it takes, hours, days, weeks off the table for you. And we do that naturally.
And I know some clients who want to work with an outside writing team may be a little nervous about whether or not that outside team is going to get it right. And, you know, it's not uncommon to get burned by writers that you hire. It happens. Some people may look at your guides and not follow them all the way through, but I'm here to tell you, when you hand us something and say this is how it has to be done, it's going to get done that way. So if you are nervous about whether Blue 7 can handle the processes you have in place, yes, we can. That's part of the value that we bring, because we know that's what you're promising your clients. And that's the client at the end of the day. So now this is what I do, and Victoria will tell you that this is what consumes a few days of my week. And it's one thing, as you know, the CEO of the company, that I probably should get rid of. But what I do is I look at every single page that comes in from clients every week, and I know all of our writers, and I decide where each one of those pages is going to go, which writer is going to get it. Now, that's not to say that, you know, some writers can't handle all of it, but in general, when you work with a group of people over a longer period of time, you get to know what they are really good at, or maybe things that, maybe not. It doesn't mean that they're a poor writer. It just means that there's some things they're good at. There's some things that I'm way better at writing. There's some things that Victoria is way better at writing. So I decide who gets what. And I don't want to understate the importance of this, because a lot of companies that are similar to ours, comparable, that provide content, they have like a free for all. I call it the OK Corral, where they'll throw all their content out and
Yeah.
it's visible to all the writers in the team. And then they just grab whatever they think they want. And let me tell you what happens. There are writers that want every bit of content you have, no matter what. They're going to say they can do it no matter what. That's fine. You know, chase the bag, right? But that may not be the best way to conduct business. And I think the proof in the pudding is that Blue 7 has grown every year. And I really am convinced that this is one of the reasons, because we're so conscious about the pages. Because if you've assigned us a page, that means it was important enough for your client. So it's important enough for us to take seriously. Each page deserves that individual thought, even if it's just for a few seconds, of who's going to write it. Because we know, again, who's going to accomplish that page the best and get it back to you for the client.
And if I could pause it before we move to the next slide, what we've also seen and have experienced, this is why we've created the business that we have. When you are bound by 1 to 2 writers that are on your internal team, and not every writer can achieve the goal of each piece, that then gets saddled by your editor, who is oftentimes your content director or your chief marketing, right? Like usually they are
Yeah.
the ones that then have to go in, rearrange, rewrite, because they don't want to go back and ask them, or they have just found the limitation of their writers. We have this great carousel of writers. So when a client comes to us and they say, hey, law firm A loved writer B. Law firm B did not like writer B. Okay, we'll switch them to another writer. We'll get that. We will achieve the goal of that law firm B. You don't get that type of flexibility when you have a very limited internal team. And our goal is to always work with the team. We aren't trying to take over. We're just trying to provide this source that can solve a lot of headaches that these directors, editors, chiefs have to deal with when their internal team just can't meet the goal of that firm.
Absolutely agree. And after we assign those pages out, we have not even, in this whole conversation, even mentioned the word AI, because we have human writers writing it. And not just human writers, we have some of the best legal writers in the business. And I say that fully believing it. I would put our team up against some of the best writers in the industry that don't work with us, because I know they can accomplish the page that you give us. So it goes without saying that we are a human-driven company. It doesn't mean we shun tech, but you get a human writing your content. So that is, fairly self-explanatory. And then Victoria mentioned a minute ago, our editing team, and this is not a content director, this is not a chief marketing officer, these are editors that in our case have risen through the ranks from legal writers to the editors, so they know what they're looking at. They are looking through it to make sure that it matches up with your guide. They're making sure that it's legally sound. They're making sure that it's grammatically correct. They're making sure it's formatted properly so you can copy and paste that thing right into the back end and it's ready to go. Or, does it look like a page that should be handed over to a client? All of that happens before it even comes close to seeing a client.
So just to add some more, all of our editors have written for those clients. So they have firsthand knowledge of what to look for. Second, I think I just have to add like keywords in here, right? We are white labeled, right?
Yeah.
We are published ready. We not only incorporate the SEO strategies, but we also format correctly. And I don't know, Alan, maybe I'm jumping ahead, but whenever we onboard a writer, we train them in different SEO strategies and formatting. We do want to make sure that when you copy and paste it, it goes seamlessly onto that website in the correct format, which again is often a step that is saddled by that
Yeah.
one person where they have this maybe again one or two internal writers, or they have that potluck of freelancers and they just throw them the content and then they are saddled with formatting every page. They are making sure that the SEO strategy is incorporated, or they're having to communicate with that strategist and try to communicate that with the team. Not every writer has that type of knowledge incorporated. So to know that you have a team like ours, where we ensure that whatever writer we have on board has that background knowledge and we train them in that background knowledge, really does give more opportunity for that director, that content director, strategist, CMO. It gives them the ability to do the job that they need to do. And we take care of the rest.
100% agree. Or what may happen is they have a writer write the content. They trust that the writer has edited their own content and then they just hand it over to a client or publish it. A lot of danger in that, but that's
Yes.
for another day.
Yeah.
After our editors go through it, that doesn't mean necessarily it's going right to the client. If we take care of some things on our end before it even gets to the client, now there's a lot of pages that come through that are perfectly okay, need very minor adjustments, if at all. We've been doing this a while, but there are cases. No writer is perfect,
Hmm.
including me, including Victoria. We have our work edited. If we end up writing for clients, which we do still do occasionally, it still gets edited. So when the editors edit the content, it goes back to the writer and it comes back to the editor. Now, mind you, in the background of this is the deadlines, right? We have all these deadlines in mind. We're getting all of this done and accomplished and back to you by your deadline. Yes, there may be a time or two when things slip, but that doesn't happen often. And usually it's because an emergency's popped up, or case in point, this morning, we need more information from a client about a page. We just didn't realize we needed more information until we knew. So this is all going on in the background. And if you're listening to this right now and going, ooh, that's a lot more than I thought for having a writing team. Well, that's kind of why we're going through this, because we want to show you what we do to get every piece of content ready for you. And that's what happens next. Once our revisions are made from our editing feedback, then it goes to you. And guess what? It might not be done yet. We are fully aware that the next step might be you send back some feedback of your own, in which case our editors are going to look at it, and sometimes they are able to make the change on the fly. Usually it's nothing major, or if it's something substantial, if we missed the mark or if we just didn't interpret the notes the right way, then it goes back to the writer and they work on that. And in fact, those revisions are prioritized, right, Victoria?
Yes. We are pretty speedy when it comes to that. our turnaround time is typically within a week anyway. And if there's any rapid changes that need to be addressed, or there's pages that just need to be rewritten, the turnaround time is usually within a few days. We do prioritize them. And I do kind of want to break off into maybe like a little story here.
Sure.
But we did have a client, and we just weren't apparently hitting the mark, right? They'd given us an H1, they'd given us some sparse notes, and we've been in this business for a while, and we do our research when it comes to writing, but it was a point of view that we were not used to. And
Mm.
so we were so puzzled and perplexed, because this is a client we've been working with for a very long time, and we haven't really had any issues. So when this issue came up, you and I, we're on a call, we're on a phone
Mhm.
call, we're emailing, we're messaging, because we want to get to the root of the issue. And the root of the issue was they had a strategist on team, and the strategist was withholding information. So
Yeah.
once we were able to say, like, hey, there's some issues happening here, we were able to resolve that miscommunication. And we were finally able to understand, like, oh, this is why you're wanting these types of edits. And this is why you want that point of view. It wasn't clear. And that was amazing, because it just totally opened the conversation. And now we're able to, address these clients' needs exactly how they need to be. So working with us not only like relieves the headache of a lot of things that content directors have, but it can really, like, I don't know, draw lines between the different people that are touching the page. And it's able to connect these miscommunications so that they aren't repeated. So it was a really cool chain of events that occurred within that editing process. And what, Alan, we were able to do that turnaround once we knew and understood what was going on. It was returned within, what, 2 or 3 days, and it was received with praise.
Well, and I think the scenario that you're talking about, which plays out similar to other scenarios when there's some kind of miscommunication, is I think we were on it within 5 minutes. You and I saw
Yeah.
what was happening. We asked the client for a meeting, and we were on it. Not only you and I, but also our content coordinator and chief editor was on the call
Yep.
with two members of their team, and we all laid out our points of what we were looking at, and we all immediately saw what the issue was. And
Mhm.
we got off that call maybe 10 minutes later. So now we're 15 minutes into this. And we had already turned the page around with the notes to the writer. And like you said, within 2 or 3 days, the piece was turned back around and done. Now, I ask you, is there any other company, content company, that's going to give you that quick of a reaction? Now, Victoria and I have talked before, if you've been in our ecosystem ever, we're over communicators, and that doesn't mean that we're going to pester you unless we have
Right.
to. It just means that we want to get it right, and we know that that's where other companies that are similar to ours fall on their face, because sometimes you reach out and you don't hear back day, 2 days, 3 days, a week. And then you're not going to be able to get a hold of that writer if that writer is even with them or available. That doesn't happen on our team. We know every one of our writers. We are able to respond quickly. And if it's not Victoria and I, there's three other people on our team that have the power to get on these calls and make these changes.
And I know I've said this multiple times throughout this conversation, but once again, if we were not communicative, if we were not trying to actively problem solve, if you didn't have a team like that involved, you would then, right, that director, that CMO are then saddled again with writing the page yourself, or having to scramble to find someone else, which then that goes up to the CEO, that goes up the chain, and they're wondering, why is it taking you so long to get this one page or to satisfy this one client? And that makes you look bad when it wasn't your problem to begin with. So we are really trying to alleviate that tension, alleviate those moments of panic, in a really organized and efficient way.
And I think we have done a pretty good job of that for our clients over the last 5 years.
Yes.
And, I mean, that's our process as a whole. And I say that because this is a team and not a single person. And this is why we're trusted by some of the biggest names in the industry. When Victoria and I started this company, we knew that it lacked a level of professionalism, at least this particular part of legal marketing. Now, mind you, content isn't the only thing we do anymore, but it is the bread and butter of our business. And we know that AI has opened up doors. And, a lot of people say, well, AI can do every bit of what that team did, but I bet you it can't. I know it can't because it hasn't yet. And when you have that human touch at every single step of the process, uh, at a cost basis that's really not that much compared to the services that you're getting, it's this all-in-one wonderful bundle to where our goal, Victoria and I talk about this a lot, is to make it easier on you, on everybody that calls us, that decides to work with us. If we're not making it easier on you, if we're not turnkey with your guides and within your internal system, then we're not providing the value that we should. We step in, we alleviate headaches that you may have because we know that there are headaches. And that's really just the message we want to get across.
So we work with anywhere between small to large like law firms directly. We also work and pair well with agencies. So to give kind of some background or maybe just another insight, we had a client out in West Coast. She is a single attorney, has a super lucrative business, and knows the importance of having evergreen content on the site, and has a particular voice in which they want to execute that content. And by golly, she had interviewed multiple parties to see if they can achieve not only this voice, but also the consistency in work. And she was turned down by different agencies because the volume was too small, or she couldn't get a hold of different agencies, or they had a separate salesperson that pitched them amazing things. But then when they actually got on the call with the person responsible for the work, there was absolutely no consistency between the two. What the salesperson was selling versus what that content person was expected to do. It was like two different people. So
It's we're the salespeople and we're content practitioners. So when we tell you something, it's because it's the only thing we know. We can't lie.
exactly.
So we
When you're
can't promise things that we
farming
don't have.
out or hiring these third parties to gather clients and selling, I mean, those are schemes. That's how people get, schemed.
Yeah.
So, it was between us and three other people. And the reason why they ended up going with us was, one, we love doing trial pages. We love being able to collaborate and work to see, okay, is this hitting the mark? If it is, awesome. Let's keep moving. If not, maybe we're not the right fit, or maybe we need another meeting. Also, we're communicative, and she's communicating with the same people. It's not a generic number. There's not 14 different people answering, giving different answers to whatever question that they have. And it's a unique team. I mean, I think we went through two writers. Two writers auditioned, essentially.
Yeah.
One was approved. And what's great, because I always get this comment, they're like, well, if it was a one writer, what happens if the one writer gets sick? Or what if the one writer isn't able? Well, we have backups. We train our writers for backups. So if one isn't able to, we had a writer, she is brilliant, and she bought a house. And she needed some time to live in her house. And she was a top writer of ours. So what did we have to do? We had to then go to the next writer that we knew.
Well, we know our team. We know who's comparable, right?
Exactly.
Another one of our writers, well, they're all brilliant, had a baby. And
Yeah.
you know what? You know what you need after you have a baby? A little bit of time. And so, but I knew obviously ahead of time, I had a 9-month warning. It still snuck up on me, but I knew who or which who's could Whoville.
Yeah.
God, these
Our
videos.
Whoville.
I know who could replace that person temporarily until they were ready to step back in. And
What I'll say is we have this organic team. And what I find to be really cool is when we do have writers that need to bow out for whatever reason, they're having babies, they're building families, they're purchasing houses, they are going through grief, they've lost someone. We have been able to um, not replace, but we've been technically, right, like replace them with our other writers. And I have never heard a peep from our clients. I haven't heard any type of hiccup that occurred. I don't think we've ever had a client be like, well, the content last week was way better than the content this week. Like, no, because we train our writers well and we know which writers can be the backups, and we always have a backup in place. So again, it just alleviates that stress. If you have a small internal writing team and someone gets ill, that content is paused. And if you want to sit there and talk to that client that you have and say, oh, one of our writers got really ill, we're going to have to pause. That's a conversation that if you don't want to have that, you don't have to with us. These are the solutions that we have, right? Those are the pain points that people don't consider. They think, okay, we're just going to hire someone. What if that writer finds a new gig? What if that writer, who probably is a freelancer, ends up getting a full-time gig or a better freelancing gig? They're gone. We have a team. I mean, our writers have been with us for years from the inception of this company, and they haven't
well,
left.
we just replaced someone else's internal rating team. Not that that was our goal. The idea was that we were going to work with their internal writing team. These internal writers have been with them for 5, 6, 7, one of them 10 years, and the client is now wondering where they can put those people because our content was just so much better, and they didn't really know what they were missing out on because they were comfortable using those writers. They just assumed it was okay. Like I always tell people, just because it's the way you've always done things doesn't mean that that's the way you should
The right
continue
way.
to do things. You should always look and see who's doing the best, who brings you the best value. And folks, if you're listening to this and you're a law firm or a solo firm, and you wonder if your marketing agency will be amenable to having us work with them. I know that's a lot of the pain points. You might think, oh, God, I already have a legal marketing team. I can't have them bring in Blue 7. Actually, you can. We have done that before. We've done that plenty of times. And so if that's a pain point of yours, don't worry about it. We can work with them. We can talk with them. Not a problem at all. And another thing is a lot of times, whether you're a law firm or even a newer legal marketing agency, you are just kind of starting out and you might not have an internal writing team ready. You might not be ready for that step, but you still have content needs in the meantime. Now, what Victoria and I know is sometimes these companies, law firms, legal marketing agencies, use our process to kind of train their internal team. Victoria, you want to talk on that?
Yeah. So we work with an array of people. Like you said, some people are just starting their agency. Some people have gotten into SEO because they are website developers and they're starting to just get into that content game. So, what we are and what we can be, I mean, we are a fractional service, is we are able to supplement your internal writing team until you're able to either gather that capital or to get that business strategy in place. So we are that supplemental need where we can meet those client deadlines. We can offer that content for you. Again, just to reiterate, by creating those guides with you or having guides prepared in place. So we can be that supplemental need. What has happened before with one of our clients was they were just starting and we were their supplemental team and we helped to create the kind of how to, right? How to write. And they were able to kind of mimic our model and use that as a way to guide their internal writing team. And we're happy to oblige in that as well.
Yeah, use us until you can replace us, or continue using us, because sometimes you might realize that these can be our permanent partners, which is what happens. A lot of times we end up as permanent
Yes.
partners for these growing and sometimes now bigger and absolutely massive legal marketing agencies. All right, so that's, folks, that's all we got for you today. We kind of wanted to come in and just talk about this process, because we often sit and scratch our heads. That's just because we're in the thick of it and go, why do people insist on turning to their internal writing team when it can get done better elsewhere? And of course, a lot of it is cost effectiveness. People think that hiring us is going to be more expensive, and a lot of times it's not, especially when you consider what all you're getting out of that package, not just a writer. You're getting a writer and an editor and a team that's going to be responsive to your needs at pretty much all times when you need something, because your deadlines are our deadlines. So that's what we believe in. Victoria, you got any closing arguments for us?
I do.
Of
I
course, the
really
lawyer has
do.
some closing arguments.
Yeah, I do. So I don't want to overcomplicate it. But when you have an internal writing team, you have to think of the hiring process, how you're choosing these writers, and the salary that you're giving them, and whatever benefits that are included in that salary, and any time off that you have to manage, any holidays, overtime that you have to then manage. So once again, that management is then saddled to that director, that CMO. What if all that could be taken care of, where you don't have to worry about shelling out that salary, paying those benefits, dealing with time management, overtime, PTO, and still get incredible, consistent, intellectual, client guide met content?
And this goes to you too, legal marketing agencies. We know this is a struggle that you have. I will never bash anybody else's internal writing team. We will work
No.
with them. Or if it is becoming an issue, try us out. You're not losing anything by giving us a try. We insist on those trial pages for a reason, because we don't want to move forward if we're not the right fit. Just the same that you don't want to move forward if we're not the right fit. So we will see if we're the right fit. If we move forward, it's because everybody has agreed that we are the best fit for your needs currently. And folks, that's all we have for you today. We appreciate you stopping by. Relatively young channel. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have a chance, or if you don't have a chance, do it anyway. So, all right, everybody, have a great afternoon.
Have a great afternoon.